with high-profile startup IPOs planned in the coming months. The regulatory framework for issuing shares and the power of promoters is also in the spotlight. Often startups that raise a lot of external capital end up diluting shareholding of promoters and thereby their voting rights. India introduced superior voting rights shares in 2019, which companies issue to promoters and key executives. These special shares have a higher voting power than ordinary shares. Let's understand how these shares work. Superior voting shares give key company insiders greater control over a company's voting rights, its board, and corporate actions. The existence of super voting shares can also be an effective defense against hostile takeovers, since key insiders can maintain a majority voting control of their company without actually owning more than half of the outstanding shares. On September 28, the Securities and Exchange Board of India eased certain rules. It allowed startup founders with a personal net worth of up to 1,000 crore rupees to get super voting shares. The cap for eligible persons earlier was 500 crore rupees net worth, and this was only for those in executive positions. Will Sebi's olive branch spur domestic listings at a time when top players like Nykaa, Policybazaar, Oyo, and Paytm are set to launch their initial public offerings? It is a divided bench. Here's what experts had to say.
DVRs is very useful when you are actually diluted sub 20%, right? If I was holding already 40-50%, I don't need a DVR. I can still figure out my ways to control the whole thing. Because these are emerging tech companies and high growth technology companies which dilute faster to grow into larger markets, and in the process people are under sub 20, sub 15 or sub 10. Other geographies have given these DVRs as a tool for the founder to continue and run the business the way they want.
Superior voting shares do not subscribe to the dictum of one share, one vote. They have from 3:1 to 10:1 voting rights ratio. While these shares are a relatively new concept in India, such shares are allowed in countries like the US and closer to home in Hong Kong and Singapore. Facebook founder and CEO Mark Zuckerberg, for instance, has managed to keep control of the social media network by issuing such shares, carrying 10 votes each to himself and his associates. By comparison, each ordinary shareholder has just one vote. Another notable example is that of Google and its parent entity Alphabet. The company has three different classes of shares: Class A, Class B, and Class C. Class A shares have 1 vote per share, Class C has no vote, and Class B has 10 votes per share. Class B shares are given only to top executives and early investors. Class A and Class C shares trade on the Nasdaq. In 2019, after much persuasion, Sebi had introduced the concept of superior voting shares in India. It had allowed a certain class of startups, those working on innovative technologies, to issue these shares. But it didn't take off due to some onerous demands and a whole lot of regulatory grey area. Previously, Sebi had defined eligible executives as promoters or a promoter group entity with less than 500 crore rupee net worth. Market participants complained that this was too onerous and kept prospective superior voting rights shareholders away from utilizing the framework. Moreover, the definition of promoter and promoter group was also too broad. Further, promoter groups can be holding companies, registered family trusts, and partnerships, causing further confusion. The most significant change that has come now is that net worth of the promoter in consideration doesn't include the value of shareholding in the said startup. The idea is that tech founders with marginal shareholding but executive positions would be able to manage the affairs of the companies better after listing. Without differential voting rights, startup founders had greater incentives to list abroad. However, only time will tell if new startups exercise this option.
If you liked this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.